um, Town of Washington Historical Society on Thursday evening, April 15th, 1999. And John Marona is going to talk about the history of Marona's Market.
Father worked in his store, and we have other things. We looked at the fish, and my son's like going in there now, and so it's sort of a history. But John's going to tell us more than we probably want to know. No, John, it's good to have you.
Well, it's nice to be here. I've been invited many times, but I've never had the time to come up. It's always been my day off, and I don't like to hang around Robert on Thursdays. I'm here 6 days a week, 7.5 sometimes, but Thursday we like to get away. Well, here I am. No, he won't.
You want the microphone there?
No. Can you hear me? I'll get in the middle here. David was after me to find a picture of the store when I bought it. I finally found it. I'll pass it around and you can look at it at your leisure. I'll go on with my speech now. Morona's Market was originally Dean's store. It was started by two brothers, Francis and James Dean. And they originally started for the Bank of Millbrook. Now, the Bank of Millbrook building was built by the railroad company. Carmen knows, he's researched this many times. And they moved over to where I am now in 1888. And when I was getting out of the 8th grade, Mr. Dean called me up and asked me if I wanted a job for the summer. So this was like the 39, was probably the tail end of the Depression, and you'd do anything for a buck in those days. So he offered me a job for $1.50 a day, the summertime, 6 days a week, and every other Saturday night. I hated the Saturday night job because all the old farmers would come in. They'd go over to Reardon Briggs, up to Wicker, and the last place they came was down to Dean's store because they wanted to take the stuff home to groceries that had perishables. And I wanted to get going someplace, but my Saturday night was the worst. Now, Francis is Dean's father and his brother were the Dean brothers. That's the way the store originally was started, Dean Brothers. And Francis Dean's father passed away. He dropped dead in the store. So it was kind of a two-family deal where one part of the family was there and the other part was not there. And they were kind of a mishmash to try and get the estate settled. So eventually my old boss bought everybody out. And he was the one that hired me in 1940. And I worked for him out of high school until 1956 when he decided to retire. Then he offered me the store. At first he just wanted to sell me the business and keep the real estate, and I would pay rent. So then he decided, well, I'm going to sell him the whole thing. So he was out of it, real estate, business, and I was there with one employee, Andy Place. I think a lot of people who know Andy Place knew him. And a young fellow I hired for the summer, Jimmy Asbury, James Asbury's son, a real famous lawyer in the Millbrook area in those days. I think Jimmy's a retired, colonel born from the Marines? Yeah. Well, when I first went to work in the store, it was like in the 8th grade, and the World War II started. So all the men that were working there went in the Army. And Mr. Dean was there with his sister. And I was, from the summertime working in the store, I would come down to work in the store after school and Saturdays. And then when in the 50s, when the men came home from the Army, nobody wanted to work in the store anymore, so I was stuck in the store. which I didn't mind anyway. So I bought the store in 1956 and been there ever since. I was glad to have had the opportunity to buy the store instead of just renting it, because then I could do what I wanted with it. The store had been, run down for many years and practically nothing in there, any kind of modern refrigeration. So I went over to the bank in Milberton after a year, and I said, I'd like to borrow $10,000. They said, what do you got for security? I had nothing, just me. So they gave me the $10,000. And I bought some new refrigerators and some new shelving. And then in '61, I remortgaged the store again. And that's when I put the addition on the store. And I put it right on every line. Just 3 feet wall, you had to stay from the property line, and I haven't got another inch of ground. So I can't make it any bigger. That's the way it's going to stay. So that's the story of John Marona and his store. 59 years in the same spot.
Excuse me, John. Now, you live upstairs, do you?
Yes.
And when did you move upstars? When you bought the store?
No, I was single then. I was living home with Ma. And when I married my wife Agnes, there was an apartment over the store, and that's where we are today, to this day. In fact, we were married 29 years last couple of weeks ago. So we've been up there ever since.
John, when
Yes.
it started, what kinds of things? Was it a grocery store?
Oh, just, grocery, meats, produce, small store. In fact, when I started, there were 7 grocery stores in Milberton. There was the A&P, there was the Grand Union, there was Jimmy Dunn, there was my store that I worked in, there was Mrs. Patron's grocery store on Front Street, and there were 2 Italian grocery stores up in Alden, the Manzi's and the Panazzi. And also there was a grocery store up in Madison. So there were probably 8 grocery stores in this little bit of an area. Yeah, there's butcher shops, right. Yeah, I used to go around peddling. They peddle meat out of an old truck. Oh, Joe Yates. Yeah, Joe Yates. That store was located right where Dr. Carl's office. Yeah, you. No, they don't come in. Most of them have housekeepers. No, once in a while one will come in, but most of them have housekeepers.
Does she come in the store?
Who?
Katie Good? And when we see news?
Okay, oh yeah, she comes in occasionally. Well, whatever. Anyway.
John, what about the other stores along Front Street?
The other stores?
Yeah.
That'll come in. I've got another little presentation here to do on Front Street, because I was born on Front Street. I moved 3 times in my life, and I've moved 3 times all on Front Street.
How many buildings are on Front Street? Like 3 buildings.
So,
I think they should rename it Marona Street.
well, anyway. Colin Ball Patrol's aunt had a grocery store, right? The law officer, Ann Gifford.
Yeah.
That was a grocery
Pickles
store.
man for a while.
Oh, that was there for a long time.
Yeah.
She's got a pick. Helen has a picture of it.
Don't you lose it, Joe?
Pardon me?
When did your brother join?
When did I what?
Your brother, what did you?
1959 when he came out of the Army. He was working at a defense plant in Hoffman's in Poughkeepsie, and they shells for the Navy. And then when he went to service, then the war was over, and they don't need a defense plant anymore, so he came to work for me, been there ever since.
I don't know how big this is like. That's, and they're sitting on the porch. And they're in the car. The hairdresser, this little girl sitting on the side of the porch there. She must be about 10 years old. Yeah, sure. Once I get back, say, well, this tape is going to Joan Dean Michelle.
Johnny, I hope you're enjoying this, because we're proud of the head of this thing. Now, we're putting a new floor in the store, and somebody gave me this picture about 25, 30 years ago, and nobody knew where it was or who gave it or who was in the picture. So the other day we took it apart, we took the back off it, and there's a name in there, H. Davison, and I think it's Howard Davison's family. There's a lot of Davisons around years ago, but if you look at it, it's kind of faded. It looks like there's about 14 people on this stagecoach type of thing. It's a little faded. It's over 100 years old, I think.
I wonder, did this go up to the hotel, I wonder?
Pardon me?
I wonder if this is going up to the hotel.
I don't know where it is. But Davison's had a lot of land up by the...
There was no date
No
on
date,
it.
right?
Pardon? No date
No
on it.
date.
No, but I think it's at least 100 years old.
Oh, yes.
John, H. Davidson, the old one, Henry Davidson, and he tried to spell it.
Yeah, I mean, the Davisons have a lot of land. Where Dr. Tillman was up in, was it Mrs.
It is, yeah.
I also want to tell you that it was a big event and was thrilled for me to go in the show years ago for the first time. You see, when Francis Dean had it, he didn't advertise with the round table, so my husband said, you don't shop
Well, don't blame
for
him.
advertising. So when you started, you advertised, and I went into your store.
Good.
You want help?
Somebody will have to share this. I don't know how many people are going to come tonight, so I didn't make an awful lot of copies. But this is Front Street, as I remember it as a young fellow. It's mostly around the railroad. Now, these two go together. There's a 1 and a 2. Okay, you got to give some, there's 1 and 2, so they go together, because I couldn't get it all on one sheet of paper.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So I have to do and then, okay. Okay. We have a 1 and a 2. How many would you like?
This is the Front Street. John wanted this book.
This is one.
All right, so this is 1. This is number 1. We're doing this back. That was
Here's Thorndale, and there's a tribute. And there's Franklin coming.
I always thought that the railroad station was the
This is This is, the railroad station was up there on the green. This is the green.
On the green, this is Front Street.
No, Majacamas is right there. Gas station's right there.
Oh, this is the, okay, so this
Right
is behind this. Right down here.
This is my store down here.
No, the gas station is right here. Right.
Oh yeah, down here. Where's Front Street? No, check out there. That's Front Street. Oh no, here's Front Street.
There's Front Street here, in the grass and the trees.
Right, that's it.
And so that's the railroad. The railroad was in
on that
between. It was in the green.
It was on the green station.
On the green, there's a station here.
And the tracks were all the way down there.
Yeah.
So here's the different stores.
And when he was coming, I remember when that was. Here's the bank, and then when he was coming. Let's see. American Temple. So this is Front Street.
That's Front Street, right. So this is the store then,
This
right
is
there.
where, yeah, that's where you said. And the post office thing is right here. And then when he was, yeah, right, Ben Mooney was the same.
Here's where there was a drugstore first, and then there was a barber shop.
Okay, now, John's going to explain this all to you. John, you ready? You want to explain?
Well, let me get through a couple things here.
So all this
Okay, come on. Let's sit down, guys.
Gert, you remember all that?
Mrs. Patroni's grocery. And Mrs. Patroni's home. Okay. Yeah, no.
Here's number 2. Does everybody have
No,
Oh, I need a 2.
right here.
I need one. Oh, okay. Well, no, we use it now.
You need it for the record.
You need it for the record. Okay.
And look here. Okay.
Okay, well,
Go for it.
We're ready.
We're ready.
you all ready, Scotty?
We're ready. You got it.
Okay. Bob Roberts, as far as I know, only worked in high school. He was a custodian in the war. I know he was a custodian in the high school, and he went in the army, and he came out colonel. You don't remember this? No, I don't think so. Okay? All right, starting on the left here, number 1. The old round table, where the train would come in, and sometimes it wouldn't go all the way to Pine Plains. Millbrook was the big shop place. So they had to turn the train around to go back to Hopewell. So where the town of Washington has their truck stored, up that alleyway there was a round table down there, and they used to call it the Rock Cut. And there was this round table there, and the train only had to go as far as Millbrook. Put the engine on this round table, and turn it around, so it could go back down to Hopewell. And my mother told me when they used to take a train to Poughkeepsie. They got the train in Millbrook, and they went to Hopewell. And Hopewell, they got another train, and they took the train over to what they call Dutchess Junction, which was south of Poughkeepsie. And they got another train. It was 3 hours to go to Poughkeepsie. But the roads were impossible. You couldn't go on the road. unless you had a horse and buggy or just a horse. So it was a 3-hour trip to Poughkeepsie. And whatever you had to do quick, because if you missed the train coming back, you were stuck in Poughkeepsie until the next day. This is the front page of the old bank, of the Bank of Nova calendar this year. I hope everyone has one.
We have an extra kind of story pass out for the
Well, this is the railroad station in Millbrook. Yeah. Now the railroad station, with the passenger station, was right across from where the local firehouse is. Of course, it was a good place for guys to get off the train and go in and have a couple of snorts. And then as you went down the train, there was a main line through the village, through the where the village green is now. And there were 2 sidings, both for storing cars that were unloaded and waiting to go back to wherever they came from. And one, the siding that is on the bottom of this first chart was the freight station and the Railway Express and the Western Union. And the one building, the freight station, is still up in Miller's hardware, Agway. If you drive in where you pick up the bags of fertilizer and stuff, it's the building on the right. That's the old original freight station. And of course there was the loading of goods that came into the stores or to the farms. And of course the Western Union. My old boss told me that old Mr. Vedder used to be in the teletype. And the thing would come across, dot, dash. And they knew when he was getting a message. They'd go up and tap on the window and get them all mixed up. Now on the bottom of the first sheet, there's the six businesses there. The one on the corner where the beauty parlor is was a drugstore, and later a bar room. And then the next building, where Uncle Al's is, was a barber shop. And the next building down was like a saddle repair shop, and a little, like a 5 and dime, Earl Kelly. Then the next building down is where I am. The next building was the post office. And the next building was E.A. Burke's department store, where we used to get our school books. We had to pay for them in those days. We didn't get them for nothing. And you want to have a book with my mother made sure every book had a paper cover on it. And don't turn any pages down. And don't write in it. Because you got more when you traded them in. Now the next chart is the other side of Franklin Avenue, going into what we call the lumber yard and the coal yards. And the coal yard is right where, well, it's across from the A.M. Gifford's building there. And it was a steep incline, and the trains used to, the old train, to get the steam up to push these coal cars up this incline. And when they got up there was a big shed. And the coal cars, if you've ever seen a coal car, it had hoppers on the bottom like this. And when they got up there, the men up in the coal chute would pull these levers, and the coal would drop down into the bottom in the shed. And then when the coal men wanted to, say you had a ton of coal or 2 tons of coal, they would back underneath this coal shed and pull another lever. And that would fill the delivery cars up. Then it would go over and get weighed in the weighing station. I'd probably weighed the guy and all, right, Lauren? But then you went down a little further, and Reardon Briggs had a building. It's where the Napa used to be. And all the farm machinery would come in knocked down. There was nothing like hay wagons and reapers and binders. They were all knocked down like erector sets. And men had to put these farm implements together. Then you went down a little further and went to Paul Hayes lumberyard. And the bank was on the corner. Then coming down from Front Street from the bank corner, then there was Ben Olheater's Plumbing, which is now part of the bank, and the Masonic Temple, Mrs. Patron's grocery store, and the Patron home, where Helen was hatched down there somewhere. But that's the story of Front Street. Sure. Helen and I were born and brought up on that street. So that's the story of my life and the story of my store on Front Street.
Which buildings were you in your 3 moves?
Well, where it says the barber shop.
Okay.
And it said where the store is now, Dean's Grocery. And then down here,
Up Main Street.
up past Dr. Crowell's office, on the other side of the street. Helen?
Now, do you know that you had trouble with where?
Oh, sure.
Where did it come from? Where did it go? And then where did it come here from?
Yeah, went all the way up to Bengal. It was a gasoline one thing. Oh, yeah, I used to go up every night, up to Bengal. Yeah. But, Castle Garden. That's where they're building those 3 new houses across from St. John's. There was an old ladies' home. Not poor ladies, but fairly wealthy ladies. And my mother said when she was a young girl, she used to go over there and if these ladies wanted an errand run, they'd go over there and they'd maybe get a dime or a nickel for running an errand. Well, it was quite fancy at one time. Yeah, right when they're building those 3 new houses. Yeah, Charlie lived a little bit further down. His house is still standing. Somebody's done it all over. The little house. I don't know how many remember the trestle that went across from what we used to call the milk factory. It was pretty high and it was made out of beams, just real wood, heavy beams. So we used to walk it when we were kids. And we hoped we could walk it before the train came. But there was a daredevil. And down below was what we used to call the milk factory. And my mother and father both worked there. But there was a chute that ran down, and I think they let coal down there to keep the fire going down there. And the old ice house across the street, because there was no refrigeration, commercial refrigeration in those days. We used to cut the ice in the fall, in the winter. They put a layer of ice and a layer of straw. And the thing was about 4 or 5 stories high. So anyway, we used to walk the trestle. And here's the picture I took of 2 Seppi boys, kind of a trick picture. It looks like one has their head cut off by the train. But that's how the trestle looked from the top.
a wicked thing. Oh my gosh, how did you
That's
do
on the
that?
top of the trestle.
That's the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, John.
Oh, that's one question. I'm sure we have more questions.
Doing this presentation for years. In 1904, in the Millbrook Mirror Roundtable, there was a summary about the Dean's brothers and how it started. I'd just like to read it. It's short. Some of you will remember the names and the stories and the associations, and it reinforces what John has just said. The firm of Dean Brothers, composed of John and James Dean, was established in 1889 in a building on the site now occupied by the Bank of Millbrook, where they remained for 3 years when they purchased the building at present occupied by them as a general store. John, senior member, was born in Poughkeepsie in 1862, moving to this village when still young. He was educated in the public school at Burbank. All his life he has been as industrious, energetic a worker, and the success he has achieved in business is well deserved. James Dean was born in Burbank Village in 1864 and was educated in the public schools of that place, starting early in life to make his way in the world. He possesses all the qualifications necessary for a successful business owner. Father Dean was born in Burbank Village, August 22, 1872. After completing his studies in the public schools, he entered St. Charles College at Elliott City, Maryland. Graduating from that institution, he continued his theological studies in St. Joseph's Seminary, Troy, New York, and in 1889 was ordained a priest in St. Patrick's Cathedral. He was appointed as assistant to the Church of the Immaculate Conception Parish in East 14th Street, New York City, where he at present remains. Besides the above, the remainder of the Dean's family is composed of Peter, Thomas, and George. Mrs. Margaret Simmons, Mrs. Marion Simmons, and Mr. and Mrs. John Dean, the parents of this interesting family, who are at present enjoying excellent health for people of their years. The father nearing his 84th birthday. That was 1904. And it shows that I have a footprint of the building and the shed in back, which was actually the horse shed. And in 1906, an ad from the paper. And this is what they carried. Dean Brothers. What we think is not writing ads, but in selling of dry goods, groceries, shoes, hats, caps, fancy and working shirts, pants, overalls, etc. General merchandise is our line, and you will always find it up to date. Habitual trading with us always makes people happy. Dean Brothers. So I thought you'd like to see that. And I'll pass them around. You can look at the pictures. Actually, 2 photographs of both of them. We'll start on this side. So that's it. And John, a while ago, John's desk, you all know John's desk in the back. John was cleaning it and something stuck, and he pulled out the drawer, and lo and behold, out fell some brochures, and John let me copy them. But they were for rubbers, meaning galoshes, shoes, the best line, some other catalogs, things that had been in that desk probably 90 years or so. So the store has a great tradition. Thanks again, John.
Okay.
You gonna up the price a little on those guys?
If I can find them.
John, you
Compliment you, John, on the map. That's why you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
Keep them.
great.
Thank you so much.
John, I have somebody asked how you do the meat so much better than everybody else. You want to comment on the meat department?
Just try hard.
Well, you don't combine any meats or anything, right? It's all one, like if you get it somewhere else, it's 3 different meats or something, 3 different sources?
Well, we have 2 suppliers.
No, but I mean like hamburgers, you don't throw everything together. It's one cut. You're making it.
No, we have whatever cut they want. We make it out of 3 different kinds of meat.
Tastes better if
Everything
let me
is,
just
we don't buy anything that's pre-ground.
That's it, correct, ground.
Some places have, where you buy 99-cent hamburger pre-ground.
Right, so everything's not, you do everything right there.
Oh, yeah.
My brother worked for John, I don't know how long did he work? A year or so? Or?
Oh, a couple of years. He went to Millbrook School, and he wanted, when he got out of Millbrook School, he wanted to come work for me, so he worked for me for a year and a half or so. Then he got restless.
How much does that meat block weigh?
Fun?
That wooden meat block, what does that weigh?
Oh, I've got 4 of them.
Yeah.
I've got the old ones upstairs in my apartment. Those ones downstairs aren't that old.
They're pretty heavy.
400 pounds apiece.
That's what I thought.
They're
You
solid.
won't work your way down to the top of that wood.
Oh, you won't wear that one down. Yeah, 400 pounds apiece they weigh. They don't make them anymore. I used to make them in Kingston. They're made out of maple. Maple Block Company in Kingston. They just have tables now, cutting tables, plastic tops. No more heavy wood.
John, were your parents born here in Louisville?
Yeah, no, my father was born in Burbank. He imported up there.
Okay.
And then my mother was born in Millbrook.
So they went to school in Louisville?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are there any other questions for John? How about Agnes?
What was your mother's maiden name? What family was she from?
Piacentino.
Oh, Piacentino?
My mother was Italian descent. My mother's mother and father were born in Italy. And my father's parents were born in Ireland.
How did you meet Agnes?
I met her at a wedding. Up in Albany.
Do you have any children to carry on the tradition?
No, nobody wants it.
When you bought the store, John, did you sell like shoes and galoshes or anything like that?
No, that was long gone.
That was all gone.
No, that was. I remember my old boss telling me some fellow came in and wanted to borrow a pocketbook. And this is going way back with you. And my boss went over and got the pocketbook for him. He said it's 25 cents. He said it was charger. He said, "What do you want a pocketbook for? Have you got 25 cents?"
Do we have any other stories or anything you want to relate to John?
I just want to thank you, John, for that map. Someone else mentioned that. And I've heard about the trestle and I've heard about all these things, but this is the first I've seen it actually diagrammed. It was wonderful. Thank you.
There was 2 big lumber yards in Millbrook. The Haight and the Swifts. They both sold the same, practically the same thing. Of course, Nancy here, you can tell you're funny about that lumber yard business.
Well, yeah, our pictures all burned up in my father's garage. We were going out to eat fighting those. So we have nothing for something.
Good.
Well, Scott, I just want to say back to Dean's store history. Francis and Betty Dean's store, Joan, my best friend, from 5th grade. Century Store.
Only yesterday.
And I just want to say my name was during grade school, going down to the store, she had orders to the housekeepers at the large homes where we lived. And I would go in the store and it would be so dim, not well lit at all. And but over the years, by going down, it was well lit and modernized. It was great. My remembrance is Francis Dean. TV came out, black and white sets. Sunday afternoon, we watching black and white English movies and he was at the dining room, Mary had one of them. And then later years, Joan and her husband Sally moved to Florida. And Francis retired, wanted to move down with the children. So Joan, find a house for us. Not too easy things to do, but one came up across the street from her. And so it was all right with him, and his sister Helen, and Lakeland, and the house across the street. And the last time I saw him was when I was down there visiting with Joan. She had to drive me back to Tampa Airport, fly home. Francis and Helen wanted to go to the airport. So they did, and this is a little funny story. At the time, you had to go through, always weird, really board plane to wait for it, and you have the metal detectors. And Joan and me and Helen went through fine. Francis did not pass the metal detector because he had changing his car. And he had to take it out, bell went off and all that, put it on tray. Now Francis was kind of grumbled a little bit. And then he had to go through it again, and bell still. So he had to get more shit. And then he failed that one, and bell went off again. And then he was getting his Irish temper and sputtered, but he had to take it to hospital. So finally he passed. But that really was just a funny thing, and that was the last time we saw Francis being alive. And that's my funny remembrance of him. This sputtering type of man, rough, and just really unique. So that was some, I kind of think of the year, that was good. 86. I remember it. And that is one thing I remember about Francis doing that. His frustration was no passion.
Does anybody have anything else before we wrap up? I have two more things. One is if you're not a member and would like to become a member, Allison and Harold have membership forms, and you can sign up or take one home with you. And secondly, the calendar that John passed around, we have them down at the store. We'll just give them to you. The bank gave us a whole box of them. So do you have any more at the bank, Mickey? And there's some at the bank as well. You can have as many as you want. I think you should keep them, and each year keep them going. So if you need one, you come down to the store or go to the bank. Mickey, are they anywhere else, Mickey? Are those calendars anywhere else or just at the store and the bank? Okay. Okay, so just go to one of those places and get one. Okay. John, thank you very much. Members, see Harold or